My name is Nicole Harris, 34 years old, and I haven't set foot in my parents' house in 12 years. The last time I spoke to my father, Dr. Thomas Whitfield, chief of cardiology at Vanderbilt Medical Center, he told me that Ryan Hayes was going to ruin my life and that I had 48 hours to choose between my family and a man who drove trucks for a living. My mother, Sandra Whitfield, director of hospital operations at the same institution, didn't give me 48 hours. She handed me a check for $2,000, said it was for an abortion and a plane ticket somewhere far away, and told me not to come back without a receipt. I was 21, 6 weeks pregnant. And Ryan was sitting in his 2003 Kenworth semi in our apartment complex parking lot, waiting to drive me to my prenatal appointment, completely unaware that my mother had just tried to buy my daughter out of existence. He didn't know. I made sure he never knew about the check. I tore it up in the bathroom and flushed it. Some things you protect people from. It was the week before Christmas, 2010. My parents had invited Ryan to their home in Green Hills for the first time, 4 bedrooms, professionally landscaped, the kind of house that told guests exactly how much they were supposed to admire the people who lived there. Ryan wore his best clothes. He'd gotten a haircut. He brought a bottle of wine and looked up which kind to bring with the specific dinner my mother had planned. He'd been nervous about it for 2 weeks. My father opened the door, looked at Ryan, looked at the wine, looked at Ryan again, and said, "There's a coat hook on the left, not hello, not thank you for coming, just the coat hook." Dinner lasted 40 minutes. My father set his fork down at the end of the soup course, looked at me across the table, and said, "Your mother and I have been patient, Nicole. You've made your point. But you are 21 years old. You have 2 years left of nursing school, and this situation," he didn't say Ryan's name, "just this situation needs to be resolved before it becomes permanent," Ryan said quietly. "With respect, sir, it already is permanent. We're having a baby." The silence that followed was the kind that fills a room from the floor up. My mother stood, picked up her wine glass, and said, "I need a moment," and walked out of the dining room. My father watched her go. Then he looked at Ryan with the expression he probably used on residents who made mistakes in the OR. Measured, final. "You have a CDL and a high school diploma," my father said. "Nicole has a full scholarship. She is 4 semesters from a nursing degree at Vanderbilt. You're asking her to trade a career for," he paused, "what exactly? A life on the road? A baby in a 2-bedroom rental?" Ryan didn't look away. "A family, sir. Something I'll spend every day building." My father nodded slowly, the way people nod when they've already decided they're not listening. Then he asked me to speak with him privately. The conversation in the kitchen lasted 11 minutes. I counted. He explained, carefully and without raising his voice, that Ryan was not the problem. The problem was that I was letting sentiment override intelligence. That love was a feeling, not a plan. That a man who drove long-haul freight for $45,000 a year was not equipped to provide for a family in any meaningful way. That my grandmother had worked her entire life so that we could have choices, and this was how I was using mine. I said, "I'm keeping the baby, and I'm keeping Ryan," he said. "Then you're not keeping us." My mother didn't say goodbye when I left. She was in the sitting room, and as I walked past the doorway, she turned her face slightly away, like she was embarrassed, like I was something she didn't want her neighbors to see. Ryan was waiting by the front door with his coat already on. He read my face in about 2 seconds, didn't ask any questions, just put his hand on the small of my back and guided me out to the truck. He drove for a while before he said anything. "You okay?" "No." "Do you want to talk about it?" "Not tonight." He reached over and turned on the heat. Okay. That was it. That was Ryan. He always knew when to ask and when to just turn on the heat. I tried once to reach my mother. It was February, 2 weeks before Haley was born, and I was sitting in our apartment at 11:30 at night, too big to get comfortable anywhere, too scared to sleep. I typed an email. I wrote that I wasn't asking them to change their minds about Ryan. I just wanted them to know their granddaughter was coming, that she was healthy, that I had named her Haley after the grandmother they'd always told me I looked like. I asked if I could send a photo after she was born. The response came from my father's office email at 7 the next morning. 3 sentences. He had asked his assistant to reach out and let me know that he and my mother wished me well, that they had retained a family law attorney to formalize the separation of assets and expectations, and that they would not be pursuing contact going forward. Please do not respond to this email. It will not be monitored. I printed it out, folded it, put it in a box where I keep the things I need to remember and don't want to revisit. Haley was born February 14th, 2011. 7 pounds, 1 ounce. She came out screaming, which the nurses said was a good sign. Ryan cried. He tried to pretend he didn't, but he absolutely did, standing there in paper scrubs holding her like she was something irreplaceable that had been handed to him by accident. She grabbed his finger and he said, very quietly, so only I could hear, "She's got your grip. She's going to be fine." She was. The first years were tight in every sense of the word. Ryan drove regional routes, so he could be home most nights, which meant lower pay, $39,000 that first year. I finished my nursing degree 6 weeks after Haley was born, went back before I was fully ready because I had come too far to stop, and started working at a community clinic for $17 an hour. Ryan's mother drove 40 minutes 3 days a week to watch Haley when neither of us could arrange coverage. She was 71, retired, and she never once made us feel like a burden. We rented a house on the east side of Nashville. Small yard, 1 bathroom, the kind of neighborhood where people park their trucks in their driveways and everyone knows everyone else's business. It was nothing like Green Hills. I loved it immediately. When Haley was 18 months old, Ryan came home from a long route and sat down at the kitchen table with a notepad and a very specific look on his face. He had been doing math. "I've been thinking about starting something," he said. I sat down across from him. "Show me." He pushed the notepad over. He had outlined the cost of purchasing one truck outright versus leasing, the difference in insurance, fuel projections, the rate per mile for owner-operators in our region versus company drivers, and a list of 3 freight brokers he'd been building relationships with over 4 years on the road. The numbers were careful. Conservative, he pointed to one column. "This is 12 months of runway. If I don't hit target by month 10, I sell the truck. No loss." "How much do you need to start?" he told me. We had 60% of it in savings. He had already talked to a credit union about a small business loan for the rest. He'd already done the application. I looked at him across the table. Our daughter was asleep in the next room. The kitchen light was the cheap overhead kind that made everything a little yellow. "Do it," I said. "You sure? You've been building toward this for 4 years. I've watched you do the math. You're not guessing. Do it." He nodded, went quiet for a moment. "I want to name it after Haley. Hayes Haley Transport, LLC. Filed with the state of Tennessee in March 2013. 1 truck, Ryan behind the wheel. Me managing the books on nights and weekends between nursing shifts. By the time Haley started kindergarten, there were 3 trucks. By 2018, when she was 7, Hayes Haley Transport had 8 trucks, 12 drivers, a small office off I-40, and a reputation Ryan had built entirely on one principle: deliver what you said you'd deliver, when you said you'd deliver it. He never took a load he wasn't certain he could move on time. He lost business that way, early on. Then he got it back tenfold from clients who'd been burned by operators who overpromised. I became a nurse practitioner in 2016. I opened a small practice 3 years later, partnered with a family clinic, sliding scale fees for patients regardless of insurance status. Ryan never once suggested I change my model. "The numbers will follow the work," he always said. He was usually right about numbers. My brother called on a Tuesday, in September 2022. I hadn't spoken to him in over 10 years. He was 3 years older than me, had done exactly what my parents expected: finance degree, MBA, corporate job, and had watched me leave that Christmas night without so much as a text message in the years after. So when his name appeared on my phone, I stood in the clinic parking lot for a full 30 seconds before answering. "Nicole." His voice was different. Older. Something underneath it I didn't recognize at first. "Andrew, I need to talk to you about Dad. My father had had a heart attack in July. I'd heard through a former classmate who worked at Vanderbilt, a cardiologist with a heart attack. The irony had not escaped me. I hadn't called. I'd thought about it and hadn't called. "I know about the heart attack," I said. "It's not just that. Andrew's voice dropped. He's been having memory issues. Nothing diagnosed yet, but our mother wanted me to help organize his office. Medical history, insurance, all of it. He stopped. Nicole, I found things. I waited. He has a folder. Going back to 2010. Emails, letters, phone calls logged. He exhaled. He told people you left the family voluntarily, that you'd cut contact, that you chose Ryan over everyone and refused any attempt at reconciliation? I sat down on the parking lot curb. That's not what happened, I said. I know that now. His voice cracked. I was 24 and I believed him. He told me you'd made your choice and were too stubborn to come back. And I believed that because it was easier than asking questions. A pause. I found the letter you sent before Haley was born. It was in a folder, filed, with a note in his handwriting. It said, "Do not respond, handled." The parking lot was very loud suddenly. Traffic, a delivery truck backing up somewhere. The ordinary sounds of a world that had been going on while my father filed my letters under handled. There were Christmas cards too, Andrew said. Haley made them. Crayon drawings. They were in the same folder. He kept them, Nicole. He didn't respond, but he kept them. I heard what he was saying, and underneath what he was saying, I heard a question he hadn't asked yet, about whether the man who filed crayon drawings for 12 years and never sent a single word back was someone Andrew had actually known at all. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Because I have a daughter. She's 4 years old. And I looked at those drawings. And I couldn't sleep. His voice went unsteady. I've been a coward, Nicole. I want you to know, I know that. I told him I needed time to think. I hung up and sat on that curb for another 10 minutes before going back inside to my patients. Ryan listened that night without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a while. What do you want to do? He asked. I don't know yet. Whatever you decide, he said. It's yours to decide. Not mine, not theirs, not Andrew's. Yours. He reached across the kitchen table and covered my hand with his. Truck driver's hands. Calloused and warm and certain. Haley came home from school that Friday and dropped her backpack in the kitchen with the specific force of a 12-year-old who has something on her mind. Mom, she said, getting a glass from the cabinet. Do I have grandparents on your side? I had rehearsed approximately 40 versions of this answer over 12 years. None of them felt right standing at the kitchen counter on an ordinary Friday afternoon. Yes, I said. You have a grandfather and a grandmother. We don't have a relationship with them. How come? I said it plainly. When I was 21, they didn't approve of your father. They asked me to choose between him and them. I chose him, and they cut contact. Haley drank her water. Were they right? About Dad? She was looking out the front window. Ryan's truck was visible in the driveway. He was washing it, the way he did every week, a ritual Haley had observed approximately 600 times in her life. What do you think? I asked. I think they were wrong, she said, and went upstairs to do her homework. My mother arrived at my clinic on a Wednesday in October. I came out to the waiting room and we looked at each other across 6 chairs and a small magazine table. She was 63. Her hair had gone fully silver, still put together, still projecting a competence that asked the room to take it on faith. I brought her to my office and closed the door. Your brother told you about your father, she said. Not a question. He did. She smoothed her jacket. His condition is progressing. The care costs are significant. She paused. He's been asking for you, Nicole. In his clearer moments, he asks about you and about Haley. He had 12 years of clearer moments, I said. He filed her Christmas cards in a folder. He wrote handled on my letter, and had his assistant tell me I had no family here anymore. She looked at the wall beside me. Did you know? I asked. About the folder? What he told Andrew? Some of it. Which part? He handled the communication decisions. I didn't always know the specifics. A pause. I knew he'd told your brother you chose to leave. At the time, I thought it was less painful for everyone. For everyone, I repeated. For the extended family. There was already embarrassment. A pregnant nursing student and a truck driver. Our colleagues, Our friends at the hospital. I know what it was, I said. It was your reputation. That's what I was traded for. She looked at me then. Her eyes were very tired. I know it looked that way. It didn't look that way. It was that way. She pressed her hands flat on her knees. I'm not here to. Then why are you here? She took a breath. Your father would like to see Haley. Before his condition worsens significantly. If there's going to be any time for him to know her at all, it would have to be. He doesn't know her, I said. He chose not to know her. For 12 years he chose that, and he kept her drawings in a folder the whole time, which is something I am still trying to understand. He was wrong, she said. The words seemed to cost her something real. We were wrong. I waited. That's it? I said. That's the apology? She looked at me steadily. I don't know how to apologize for 12 years, Nicole. I genuinely don't know where I would begin. Most people begin with the word, sorry. Silence. I am sorry, she said finally. And then, because she had never been able to leave anything unqualified, I'm sorry for how things went. I never imagined. Stop, I said. I don't want a qualified apology. I especially don't want one delivered because your husband's memory is going and you need something from me. If Andrew hadn't found that folder, if Dad hadn't gotten sick, would you be here? She didn't answer, which was its own answer. I need time, I said. I'm not agreeing to anything today. I'm not introducing you to Haley today. If and when I decide to do anything, it will be on my terms and my timeline. Not because of his health or your finances or what it might look like to the people at Vanderbilt if the story comes out the wrong way. I opened the office door. I have patience. She stood and walked past me into the hallway. At the door, she stopped. For whatever it's worth, she said, not turning around. I watched you from a distance. Online. Through other people. I watched you finish nursing school pregnant, start your own practice, build something. I told myself I was angry at you for years. She paused. But the truth is I was angry at myself, and you were easier to be angry at. She opened the door. Your father always said Ryan wasn't good enough. I believed him for too long. She left. I stood in the hallway for a moment. Then I went back to my patients. We told Haley that Friday. The same kitchen table, the same way we'd always had every hard conversation. We told her everything, the folder, Andrew's call, my mother's visit, the Christmas cards she'd made as a small child that had been filed and kept and never acknowledged. We told her because she was 12 and had already asked, and because Ryan and I had always agreed that withholding truth from your child to manage their feelings is not protection, it's control. Haley listened without interrupting. When we finished, she was quiet. So he has all my cards, she said. Yes. And he kept them, but never said anything. Yes. She thought about this with the particular steadiness she had always had, even as a very small child. That's sad, she said. For him. Not angry, not hurt exactly. Sad on behalf of an old man she'd never met, who had filed her drawings in a folder for 12 years, and called it handling it. What do you want to do? I asked her. I think I want to meet him, she said. Not because he deserves it, but because I want to know what he looks like. And I want him to see that I'm real. She paused. And then I want to decide what happens after that myself. That's my daughter. We arranged a lunch in November. A restaurant, neutral ground. Andrew came. My mother came. My father, on a good day, his home nurse confirmed it that morning. Ryan came. I was not leaving him out of anything involving our family. My father was thinner than I remembered. He had always been tall and commanding, in the way certain doctors are, the kind of authority built from decades of people deferring to your expertise. That was still there, but quieter now. He looked at me across the table for a long moment. Nicole, he said. Dad. He looked at Ryan. Whatever he had expected, or prepared himself to see, something adjusted. A man in his early 40s, who carried himself without apology, who pulled out chairs and made eye contact and said, "Good to meet you, sir," without a trace of resentment anywhere in his voice. My father shook Ryan's hand. Then he looked at Haley. She watched him with the calm, direct gaze she'd carried since infancy, the one I had never been able to trace to either of us specifically. "You have your mother's eyes," my father said. I know, Haley said. And apparently I have your mother's name. Were you close to her? He blinked. Very. Me too, Haley said, with Dad's mom. She babysat me when I was little. She died when I was 8. I still think about her sometimes. She looked at him steadily. I think people carry their grandparents, whether they want to or not. Something crossed his face. Not quite a smile. Something older and more complicated, the look of a man encountering the full weight of a choice he made 12 years ago and has been carrying in a folder ever since. Lunch lasted 2 hours. My father and Haley talked about science, robotics, the cardiovascular system. He lit up at that, despite himself, the reflex of a man who had spent 40 years caring about one organ above all others. Ryan and Andrew talked, which I hadn't anticipated. They were more alike than either of them probably wanted to acknowledge. Two men who had built things from nothing using their consistency as the primary material. My mother watched me from across the table most of the time, and I let her watch. In the parking lot afterward, my father stopped beside me while the others walked ahead. I made a mistake, he said. His voice was careful in the way I understood was partly his condition and partly something genuine beneath it. Many mistakes. I told myself I was protecting you from a difficult life. I understand now that I was protecting my image of what your life should be. He paused. Ryan is a good man. I know, I said. I was wrong about him. I know that too. He looked across the parking lot at Ryan, who was helping my mother with her coat while she tried to wave him off. He's good with her. With Haley. He's the best father I've ever seen, I said. In 12 years, he has never once let her down. He has never once not shown up. She knows exactly who she can count on. I said it plainly. It was just true. My father nodded slowly. I understand what I missed. I hope so, I said. And I meant it without anger, which surprised me. What I felt instead was something duller and quieter. Grief, maybe, for all the versions of this that hadn't happened and could not be recovered. The school events, the birthday dinners, the conversations about medicine that he and Haley were only now beginning for the first time. Can we do this again? He asked. Haley wants to, I said. That's enough for me. I'll be there for her sake, not yours or mine. And the terms are mine. The frequency, the conditions, all of it. If it stops working for us, it stops. That's fair, he said. Ryan appeared at my shoulder. My father shook his hand again, held it a beat longer this time. She's remarkable, he said, meaning Haley. She really is, Ryan said. We're pretty proud of her. We drove home in the November dark. Haley had her headphones on in the back seat, watching something on her tablet, decompressing the way she did after big days. Ryan drove. I watched the city lights move past. After a while, she took out one earbud. Was that okay? For you, I mean? I think so, I said. You? She considered it. He seemed sad, she said. Not bad sad. Just the kind of sad where someone knows they did something wrong and it's too late to undo it. She put her earbud back in. Ryan found my hand. I held on to it the rest of the way home. I have thought a lot about what this changed and what it didn't. My parents did not become different people because time passed and my father got sick, and my daughter turned out to be someone worth meeting. The damage they did was real and specific, and it doesn't dissolve in a 2-hour lunch. Andrew apologized, directly, more than once. And I believe him. My mother said sorry once, qualified, in a hallway, while already walking out the door. We are not close. I don't expect we ever will be. What I have is this. Ryan, who has not once in 14 years made me feel small or uncertain or less than. Haley, who at 12 years old looked at the grandfather she'd never met and asked him if he'd been close to his mother, and waited for his answer, with the patience of someone who already knew the shape of the answer before it came. The practice I built that sees patients on a sliding scale on Tuesdays and Thursdays, where the nurses know every patient's name. Hayes Haley Transport with 12 trucks and 18 employees. Every one of them paid fairly and sent home to their families. And the kitchen table we've had since the beginning. The way Ryan still turns on the heat before he says anything hard. My parents taught me that family was about reputation and the right name on the right building. Ryan taught me it was about showing up, every time, without keeping score. And Haley taught me that you can look clearly at the people who hurt your parents, really look at them, without agenda or performance, and still choose your own relationship with them entirely. That is its own kind of courage, and she arrived at it at 12 years old without anyone showing her the way. People ask if I have regrets. Here is what I can tell you. I don't regret Ryan, not for 1 hour of 14 years. I don't regret finishing school while pregnant, or the tight years, or the East Side house, or Ryan's mother making that 40-minute drive. I don't regret the sliding scale Tuesdays, or the kitchen table, or the company named after our daughter. What I regret is my father writing handled on a letter I sent him from a 2-bedroom apartment at 11:30 at night, 2 weeks before his granddaughter was born. I regret my mother watching from a distance and deciding that was easier. I regret that Haley spent 12 years making Christmas cards in crayon for grandparents who filed them away and never wrote back, and that she took that information at 12 years old and responded with more grace than anyone in that family had shown in over a decade. But I don't regret any choice I made, only theirs. My name is Nicole Harris. I am 34 years old. I haven't been inside my parents' house in 12 years, and I don't know if I ever will be. I am okay with that. Ryan and Haley and I are more than okay. We are exactly what a family is supposed to be.